All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode, another riveting, entertaining episode of Tackle, hopefully riveting, hopefully entertaining episode of Tackle and Tacos, a fishing podcast. I am Jordan, coming to you live from my garage in northern Wisconsin. That is, of course, Nate, coming to you from his basement in Davenport, Iowa. And one of the things I want to say before we get into our guest, and we're going to move quick to him. He's actually going on a fishing trip tomorrow. And so, you know, we got to let the dude get some sleep, and we're just honored to have him on the podcast first. So we're going to get to him in just a second here. But one thing I always said from the beginning of our podcast was, in the business world, there's this thing called DVP, differentiating value proposition, which basically just means, like, if you and 30 people are all selling t-shirts, what's that thing that differentiates you? What gives you value? What makes you a little bit different than everybody else? And there are so many good bass fishing podcasts out there. Bass Talk Live, Luke Duncan, Serious Angler, Stray Casts, Mike Iaconelli. I mean, there's a million. Brian Thrifts. And they're all so good. And so we were like, what can we do? Because we're primarily, not only, but primarily bass fishermen. What can we do to be a little different? And from the get-go, we're like, dude, let's just have good conversations with interesting people. And people who maybe fish, people who are maybe like taco people, whatever. But let's just have good convos. And I feel like we've definitely done that the last couple of weeks. Like episode 60, we had Rico on, which we got from Life Below Zero. We got so much good feedback from that. Just such a humble, authentic dude, and the way the whole like Athabascan native culture and fishing versus the way we do it and whatever. And tonight, I think we have another similar, not necessarily Rico, but just similar in the way of like a really interesting guest that I think we'll have an awesome conversation with. Before we do that, Nate, how have you been, my friend?
I have been doing quite well, actually. Quite well.
That's good. You said that stuff
for sure.
Quite well.
No, just been enjoying a lot of time with the family.
Heck
you know,
yeah.
Spent time together over the 4th, and this past weekend, and we've just kind of been hanging out, enjoying ourselves, and it's been fun.
Are you a buy fireworks and pop them off in your driveway type of fella?
This is the first year I've ever purchased fireworks and personally lit them off. And we didn't go crazy, spent, a little over $100 or something like that on some stuff that we could light off and make some noise, and the kids could, have fun with. So, it's the time I've ever done it. And it wasn't too bad. It was, just enjoyable enough. Did almost take a stray rocket to the dome piece, but
good.
Other than that, we're good.
So not to be like too Debbie Downer before we bring Alan in, which cat out of the bag. Our guest tonight is Alan from season 10 of Alone on the History Channel, the winner of the season 10.
Yes, not just from season
on the History
10,
Channel. And we'll talk about this with him, but I'm a pretty avid outdoorsman, and every time I watch, I'm like, oh, I could do this. I would last for 45 minutes. Like I'd drop my ferrule rod, or I would I don't know, which has actually happened on that show before. People lost their like fire starting rod, or I would fall in the water, or something stupid. I'm like, that's it. I'd be that dummy who calls in on the first night, whatever. But I'm so pumped to talk to this dude. And I think part of the reason I really wanted him on the show, and I don't know what he'll say about it, but it seemed to me when I was watching the show, because I watch it pretty religiously, it seemed to me like he survived because of fishing. That's what it felt like. We'll ask him about it, but it seemed like he survived because of fishing, and it's pretty amazing. So not to be too Debbie Downer, before we get to that, and it's not funny, but it's crazy. There was a fella on the news, man, who was had a couple drinks in him, a couple adult beverages, and tried to light a firework off of his head. And,
yes, I heard about that.
And died. Yeah. Like, dude, it's so crazy to me, how quickly things can go from yay to oh shit, this is not what we want.
That's
Jeepers criminy. I mean, and I just feel like, if that's how it's going to go down, that's about one of the most American ways to not live. Like, jeepers creepers, dude. But
absolutely crazy.
Yeah, man. So me and Lola have been really good. We went camping for the 4th up in the Hayward area. We talk about that all the time on our social. It's just like our favorite area. And for us. It's only a couple hours away. Great fishing, great like small town vibes. We brought Walter with our bulldog, just the dumbest creature on earth, and everybody loved him. We had him in downtown Hayward. He's sitting on this big like wooden chair, and people were taking selfies with him, and it was just cool. So it's been really good. But we'll get into all the business side of things, like our website and sponsors and all that at the end of this episode, because like I said, I don't want to disrespect this man's time, and he's going fishing tomorrow, so we got to respect that, right? We got to get him on and get him off for that. So with no further ado, joining us from Canada, our brother from the north, from British Columbia, the season 10 winner of the super highly acclaimed show on History Channel, Alone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so honored to bring in right now Alan. Hey man, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great, dude. This is exciting to have you on.
Awesome.
So
I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it too, man. So before we go too far into it, tell us about your fishing trip. What do you got lined up for tomorrow?
Well, we're going to one of my favorite lakes, an unnamed lake, not too far away.
Have to keep it. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been fishing it for probably about 10 years now, so I've got it pretty well figured out, what to use certain times of year, and it's all rainbow trout from 1 pound up to 4 pounds if you're lucky. Fishing from shore, just hanging over the drop off. It's awesome.
Yeah, and fun. You are, to be clear, I mean, I suppose you fish more than, I mean, we know you do from the TV show, but if you have your preference, you're a fly guy, correct?
Yeah, I'd probably 90%. I'm not opposed to, putting a big, heavy 5 of diamonds and trying to snag some big pike or pickerel up north, or salmon, trolling for some big salmon or jigging for halibut. The lake that I live beside has a high bass population, but they're invasive. Somebody released them years ago, and so there's no limit on bass. And they're like, wow. I caught a 7-pounder in here a couple of years ago, but
holy crap!
Wow. Yeah. If you don't believe me, I have a picture of my phone. I'm not lying. It's massive.
Can you show us? Can we see it? I'd love to see it, because that's. Okay. I mean, that's. Sure. I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm saying I want to see it because I'm excited about it. Like, that's awesome.
I think you don't believe me.
That's always the best thing you can do when you're bringing a guest that you're excited about, is insult him like right out of the gates. Yeah.
Let's throw on the spectacles. Oh, there it is.
All right, let's see this thing.
Can you tell us the secret of how you caught it? What you were doing?
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. That's a monster. Yeah, that's like as big as your like midsection.
Yeah, and
good God,
tank.
Yeah, that's a monster.
Yeah. That was just from the shore with a Texas rig.
Wow.
Just, the worm, right? With the cone shaped cone shaped weights, and just
like a bullet weight.
Those funny hooks. Yeah, I'm not a huge bass fisherman. They're just I don't know why, but they're not. I know they're one of the most popular game fish in the world, but hardly anybody in my area fishes for them. They're kind of considered just like a coarse fish. Everyone wants bull trout, cutthroat trout, rainbows.
Sure.
But they are fun to fish, and they bite like crazy. But they don't seem to be hard to catch. Like, if you want to go catch bass, you can go catch bass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, that's so funny.
Yeah, like just head to the weed bed. Have some top baits, some worms, I mean, if they're biting, they'll pretty much catch it. Won't they? Like, I'm not a bass fisherman.
No, you're right.
You're right. They're not hard to catch in our lake, especially in the spring.
Yeah.
But
there's definitely times where you can put hooks on a floating shoe and catch them. So
pretty much. Pretty much. And you are British Columbia, right, Alan?
Yeah. In a place called the Kootenays. Yeah, okay. The East Kootenays. I have the memory of my son. One of the first big fish he caught was on this lake. We're out in the boat, and they were just starting to put all the docks in the water, like in the spring. It's kind of a vacation lake, so lots of people from Calgary come here, and they put docks. So we went close to the dock, and we had this crazy lure. It was like a frog with the back legs that spin. Like it's the top water bait, and he was small. I'm like, Davis, okay. Cast beside that dock. I'm sure there's bass under that dock. Cast there and just reel in slow. He still remembers. He's 23 now, and he still remembers it. He's like, has a good cast. He's like, tick 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 tick, bam! And he caught probably a 3 or 4 pound bass. And
heck yeah!
It's super exciting. But after we caught that one, I find if you catch one in an area, you got to move on because they stop biting. Is that a thing for bass?
Or, it can be, yeah, it can be. It depends on like what kind of water you're in. But if it's semi-shallow and they're just going crazy, a lot of times, it just stirs everything up so much that you might as well keep it moving. Other times you can catch them deep, and if like smallmouth always fight, it seems like largemouth sometimes get lethargic. You can pull one up that's like pulling in a water ski. He'll just kind of scoot across the water. You can go right back out and catch another one. But and same thing with smallies. If you get into them, you get into schools. But shallow like docks like that, usually, I don't usually pull more than one bass off a dock, but yeah, for sure. And so in British Columbia, I'm trying to think, Nate, do you know where some of because there's some really, really good professional bass fishermen from Canada. I'm trying to think of where they're all from. I can't remember if any of them are BC guys or not, but I mean, Canadians have some really great waters up there.
I think bass fishing is more popular out east, Ontario side in eastern Canada. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, Gussie, our good buddy, who's a Bassmaster Classic, which is like the Super Bowl of bass fishing, essentially. He's a Bassmaster Classic champion. He's from just the north side of like Lake of the Woods, Ontario region. So that's definitely a little more, like you're saying, a little farther or further east. But yeah.
Yeah, we're in Western Canada, and I live right by the border of Montana. Very, very close. Eureka, Montana is like a hour and a half, 2 hours away from me.
Oh, right on. That's sweet. Right. Okay. Yeah. So let's get into it, man. I want to find out about you as a human. What I do know from the show and what I've read about you is just so flippin' interesting to me. So give us a couple minutes, and this is going to sound like really deep and existential, and it doesn't have to be. It can be however you want to take it. But who are you as a person? Because I read about you being a high school teacher, and you're obviously a bushcraft master. You're a season 10 alone champion. You're a husband. You're a dad. You're a fisherman. Who are you?
Okay, well, I'll start with my career, I guess. I've been a teacher. I started teaching in 1996 in northern British Columbia, and I taught all the way up till September this year. So I'm kind of semi-retired. I always had the plan to retire when I was 55, right? Just because I wanted to have time to do things, to pack an elk out of the bush if I needed to. I wanted to be able to hike mountains. I wanted to have some time where I still had my physical capabilities to enjoy the things I like to do. Mm-hmm. So when I won the show, I was 52. I had to go back and teach in September because I had to give 30 days notice. I couldn't give notice that I was going to retire. I only retired a couple years early. Because you had to give 30 days notice. So I went back and taught in September, which was pretty cool because they knew I was on the show and stuff. And so it was neat. Kids were pretty excited. And then, I kind of just semi-retired. I'm still being a substitute teacher 2 or 3 days a week. And I'm getting into public speaking. I'm doing keynotes at events about my experience. I speak at schools. I have a session called Unplugged, where I talk about the importance of the relationship between kids and nature and how we're slowly losing that relationship. So I'll plug that speech a little bit. I do, if you go to my Instagram or YouTube, I have a link to my public speaking page.
And what are those real quick? Hit us with your Instagram and YouTubes.
It's just Alan _Tenta.
Okay. Tenta, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And my YouTube is just Tenta Outdoors.
Perfect.
And the links are there to my public speaking page. But I love talking about my experience.
Yeah.
It's still raw and still super fresh. And I still get emotional when I talk about it.
Sure.
Even on almost every one of the speeches that I've done, I did a keynote a couple of months ago. I've been in a couple of schools. I did a fundraiser. I did another speech at a college. And every time I get teared up. Certain times it's just super cool to talk about because it brings me back. I've got clips from the show, lots of pictures, slides. So I kind of share an experience that I had out there. That was one of my speeches all about resilience and passions and how my passions for bow hunting and fishing kind of got me to the places I've been today, like how it led to my outdoor education career in high school, how it got me on the show, how it helped me be successful in the show, just being so passionate about bow hunting and passionate about fishing, and how it's so important for kids, especially to kind of discover their passion and kind of follow that in life, and just keeping connected with the outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I kind of talk about an experience on the show. I show a clip, and then I kind of give a little gift back to the audience, like how they can relate that to their life,
Yeah.
So
that's beautiful.
Good.
Have you ever read this book? I just had it on the counter, Outdoor Kids and an Inside World.
You're really small. Your screen's like the size of my thumb.
Let me see if I can
hold on
bigify it a little bit.
Oh, there you go. Outdoor Kids. No.
So that's by Steven Rinella. Another one that I've read is Last Child in the Woods by Dr. Richard, like something like Louver or something like that. But basically it's very similar to the topics you're talking about. This idea of like that built in, whether we fan the flame of it or put that flame out, but like that built-in desire for every human to connect with nature it doesn't have to be hunting, doesn't have to be fishing, but just being outside and not being stuck important to a screen. And I read my mom is a psychologist, and she told me about, when I was telling her I was reading those books, she told me about a study that they did with prisoners. I can't remember what state they were in like a medium or maximum security prison, and how some of those prisoners on where they were in like their housing units, some of them had windows that saw nature, and some of them had windows that saw the rest of the prison. And it was something bananas, Alan, like 45% more of the prisoners who didn't see nature ended up like in the infirmary and getting sick than the ones who could actually see nature, just because of the psychological effects of seeing. You know what I'm saying? It's just insane the effects it has on us.
I was just letting you finish because I have almost the same sort of spiel, but not with prisoners. Like during my Unplugged speech, I talk about there's a stat about how patients recovering from disease, if they have a window in their hospital room with a view of trees in the outdoors, they heal significantly faster.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and a classroom that has plants and a window like that, the kids perform better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. That is so cool. Yeah. There's another book I read called Creativity Incorporated by Ed Catmull. He's the guy who started Pixar before it was Disney Pixar, and it was just Pixar. And they actually built I'm trying to see if I can do this like on the screen. They built their offices in like an H. So every single office has windows on two sides of every single office in there, because they saw the sort of intrinsic value of having nature and sunlight and all that. And so, it's pretty undeniable, like whether you're, regardless of what your medium is, but
someone told me about a book the other day. It was called, I haven't read it, but it's called The Comfort Crisis. Have you ever heard of this book? It's about just how people, and especially youth of today, we're so used to being absolutely comfortable with heat, with food, with safety, especially in North America, and how just a generation ago, that like it just talk about my dad. Like I talked about my dad a bit on the show. Like he suffered when he was a kid. He went through suffering.
Sure.
When he was a kid, and now, I mean, it's good that we're not suffering, but we're kind of maybe losing a little piece of our resilience as humans. So I haven't read the book. I'm just kind of guessing that's obviously what the theme is, but I'm definitely interested in reading it.
Yeah, what'd you say it was called again?
The Comfort Crisis.
I got to look that up. Yeah, that sounds like something I would love to read for sure. So again, I don't want to get too deep on you, but you brought up your dad. For anybody who hasn't seen season 10 of Alone, I cannot over recommend it. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong here, if you know, Alan, but I'm pretty sure on history.com, it's still totally free to stream the whole season. So you can catch up and watch it. It's pretty amazing.
I do know that last Sunday it was released on Netflix, the whole season.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's on Netflix now too. Season 10's on Netflix.
So you could power watch it on Saturday and Sunday.
You really should. It's so good, man. So basically, really fast. There's a moment. Actually, before we get into that, would you do us a favor, Alan? If anybody doesn't know what Alone is, can you just give us like a 2-minute synopsis? What is Alone?
So we're on the 11th season of Alone, so that's where they take 10 people from a fairly large pool. I don't know how large it was in the beginning, but I can only speak of my season. There was 43,000 applicants for that season.
What?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the process.
Oh my gosh!
The process goes on for months. Like like it's just the first one's just a quick email. Then you get sent a larger form. You fill that out form. Then if they're interested, they give you a phone call, then a Zoom call, and then you got to make some videos, and you got to. It goes on for months. Then you can make.
Holy cow!
Then there's boot camp where they take the final 24, and you kind of compete against each other a little bit. You have psych assessments, do some survival challenges. And after boot camp, which is 5 days or so, they select the final 12. 2 being alternates in case someone gets sick or gets cold feet right before launch or something.
Oh, wow.
There's always 12. So they take 10 participants in, and you don't know where you're going until you've got an idea, but you don't know specifically where you're going until actually you're heading to base camp. You're allowed to pick 10 items, and you can select specific clothing, and basically you're dropped off in isolation with all your own camera gear. A lot of people don't understand that you really have to do there's no one there. It's not like Naked and Afraid. There's no one filming you. You're doing all your own filming, and you're never in contact with the other participants. You never run into them. I'm not sure how far they were away, but they got to be kilometers away.
Sure.
And there's no food. You can bring rations as one of your items, but they're so small. It's like, if you catch one fish, like that's the equivalent sometimes caloric wise of a ration. So instead of taking that ration, if you take the ration, you might give an axe or a saw or your ferro rod or a pot or your fishing gear or your bow and arrow, right? So where was I? Right. So these 10 people compete against each other. And basically, to simplify it, the last person remaining wins the game. Yeah. And you can tap out or quit whenever you want. You have like a satellite phone where you can call in and say, "Hello, my name is Alan, and I'm officially tapping out." And then a helicopter or a boat will come and pick you up. Or you can be removed for medical reasons, like if you're too skinny, if your organs are being damaged, or if you injure yourself severely, then you can also be removed from the game. So, yeah.
Wow, that was a great explanation. And you never, just to be clear, you never know when anybody else is tapped, because otherwise you'd have extra motivation. Like if you knew it was just you and one more fella, it'd be easier to hang in. Totally. But for all you know, on day 60, there could be 8 people left.
Yeah, I was pretty sure there wasn't too many left because I had quite a bit of food. Yeah, quite a bit of smoked fish, and I didn't know, but honestly, I had a feeling that we were down. I mean, White said the same thing. He goes, "I don't know how many people left, but I can guarantee you it's not very many."
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
That was good. And I was kind of thinking that, and I don't know, I can't remember where I was going. I lost my train of thought.
You're good. And they tell you, right? Sure. Like on the show, they tell you to be prepared to do 100 days. Isn't that what it is? Like that's sort of like the benchmark essentially.
Well, I think the average is mid 70s.
70s, yeah.
Mid 70s is the average, or low 70s. I can't remember, but there was only one season where, in order to win, you had to make it 100 days. Mm-hmm, yeah. And that season was $1 million prize money, where the other ones are all 500,000.
Yeah. And I'll still remember. I still remember the 100-day one is when that crazy fool stabbed an ox to death.
A muskox, Roland.
Yeah, that was the craziest thing I've ever freaking seen. And here I am at my house with like my fresh made espresso. Like I could do this show, What a joke.
I just gotta let my dog in. I'm just gonna
let your dog in. Absolutely, I understand.
He's barking away out there.
Yeah. How hard was the struggle to figure out what 10 items to bring, Alan?
It wasn't too bad. I had an idea. I think the only one that I really struggled with was my axe, because I had a saw, but and I've said this quite a few times in discussions with folks, is that the only reason I really brought my axe, because I knew if I did make it until freeze up, I needed a way to chop through the ice. Because I remember when Mia from the other season, she didn't bring an axe and she couldn't get through the ice. She was banging, and I kept remembering seeing her trying to chop through the ice with her saw, and she couldn't get through the ice fish. So that was the main reason I brought it. And I used it quite a bit. I was happy to have it. I didn't regret it. If I went back again, I'd pick the exact same 10 items.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's pretty humongous. That's a big statement for sure.
Was there an item that you picked that you thought you would use more that you really didn't use that much?
Let's see. Not really. No. I mean, a sleeping bag. I have a bunch of my items here. A sleeping bag. My pot is so blackened. It's got
that's awesome.
It's got like 1/8 of an inch of of soot on it.
That's amazing.
I've got it right here. My wife keeps it on display on her shelf. I mean, this is the
look
pot
at that.
just this little tiny pot.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's really neat.
It's 2 quarts. I've still got my ferrule rod in here. I've got
that's cool.
My old lures. Yeah. No, I can't think of anything that I didn't use much. I mean, I did have leftover snare wire. Like I had a whole roll of snare wire.
Okay.
And my spot didn't have a lot of snaring opportunities. Like,
sure,
I set up snares. If you remember, do you guys remember what I caught in my snare?
I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, you caught.
Here's a test.
Yeah, what was it? Was it? It was something you had to let go, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a martin. It was
Martin. Yeah, and then you had to go over and let him go, and he was ornery as hell. Yeah, he was not a fan.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I wanted to catch rabbits, but I never saw rabbits. I never saw any rabbit tracks, and these martins are running all these trails so after I caught him fairly quickly, I took down all my snares because I didn't want to catch anymore, because it wasn't necessarily a pleasant experience to release them, and they're indiscriminate. They're indiscriminate, right? You don't know what you're going to catch, and if there's no rabbits in my area, I think the martin killed all the rabbits.
Oh, that makes
and they're
sense.
feeding, and I didn't have many squirrels in my area either, because I got 2 squirrels, but I think the martin ate all the rest of them. So.
Wow. Yeah. That's a crazy moment. So let me let me ask you this. So there was I don't know if I want to let this out. No, I do. Let's talk about it. I was gonna say, I don't know if I want to let it out of the bag or whatever. If somebody hasn't watched it, but if they haven't by now, then F them. They can catch up.
Just say spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Here it is. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Spoiler alert. I'm not a very emotional dude, Alan. It's just not in my nature. I'm not really like a crier or a touchy. Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. You had me close, dude. And here's the funniest thing about it. Is just recently I stopped working at the job I was at, which was a correctional officer at a medium security prison, and I was working 3rd shift, which P.S. another spoiler alert. Sucks. 3rd shift at a prison is not very fun, and most of the time it's just really boring. And I watched a bunch of the show while I was at work, which I probably shouldn't tell the entire planet, but whatever. And there was a moment. So in that context, even I was still getting choked up, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about it. And I'm sure you already know what I'm referencing here. Is there was a moment about your father and an owl, and it was just almost it almost felt, I know it wasn't, but it almost felt fake. Like it was so beautiful and so deep that it almost felt scripted. And I'm 1,000,000% know that it wasn't, but tell us about that real quick, would you?
Yeah. I can't remember the exact day it was. It was fairly early, because I don't think I had even built my teepee yet. So sometime in the first week and a half, and I was fishing one side of the point for pike, because it was shallow water, and the water was still warm enough that they were there. And I can't remember what I was doing. I think I was cleaning a fish or something. It was dusk, and all of a sudden this owl come in. Like, I mean, it's dusk. You know, it's an owl. You don't see birds when it's dusk, and it starts doing laps around me. It's like flying right around my head. Then it started landing like 10, 15 feet from me. So it lands on the ground, and then it takes off, then it flies around the circle, then it lands in a tree, and then it would be gone. And then a couple of minutes later, it would come back and do the same thing again. Weird. And this went on and they're reclusive animals, right? Like they don't, he was extremely curious about me and extremely interested in me. I mean, I actually have that footage, but I'm probably not allowed to show it to you. I'd probably get in trouble for copyright. So, but it's on Netflix. You'll be able if you want to check out the owl scene. It's in one of the first. It's either in 1, 2, or 3 episode 1, 2. I can't remember. Okay. But it's absolutely not staged. I mean, there was no one there except for
there's
me,
no way to. Yeah, totally.
You'd have to bring in a trained owl, and
yeah.
So yeah, and it landed in a tree, and I got so close to it, I took my headlamp and I had my camera, and I literally walked right up to it, and I'm filming it. The whole owl's in my screen, right? And I'd actually turned my camera off because I had a huge kind of breakdown, and I didn't want to. I mean, I was crying on film already, but I had one where I was like ugly crying.
Yeah.
And because my father passed away of cancer, and right after he died, we all had really weird, trippy experiences with owls. Like, as my brother, who lived in California, he works in California, was coming back to Canada. He'd never seen an owl there in his life. This is almost as weird as the show. As he was walking out of his house, he hears this scraping noise in the middle of the day, and he looks up on his roof, and there was an owl walking down his roof and like rested on his drainage, whatever it's called.
Yeah, gutter.
The gutter. And once my dad died, like it happened to all of us. Trippy stuff like that. Like, I could tell you 2 or 3 more stories that are just as intense as that. Not just seeing an owl, but close encounter experiences with owls. And if you do some research on it, they're linked to they put it up on the show too. There's beliefs that, they're messengers of the death or embody spirits of loved ones and stuff. And I'm not totally buying all that stuff, but I'm just saying it was trippy, and it was a super spiritual experience. And it's not the first one that I've had, and it probably won't be the last. And my brothers have them fairly often too. And the other thing is, and this is on the show too, my mom said to me before I left, the last thing she said to me was, "Al," and I said this on the show. She goes, "Keep your eye out for Dad too. See if Dad comes by for
Dude,
a visit."
Come on.
I swear to God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Golly.
I mean, my mom, after my dad died, my mom got a tattoo of a feather on her arm.
Come on.
Yeah.
Jeez, dude. I'm not an emotional guy, but if that doesn't choke you up, geez, that's, and the fact, and even just strategically, the fact that it happened early on in your experience there.
I think
you know what I mean?
Like week. Yeah.
Gosh.
Pretty sure it was the first week. Yeah. It was pretty intense.
Amazing. Yeah. That's beautiful.
And I get a lot of people have reached out to me, a lot of fans, just about that particular moment, that how much it either did or it didn't, right? Most people are like, yeah, bullshit, whatever. The guy's crazy. But a lot of people have reached out and said, "Oh my God, the owl. Oh my gosh." Actually, I got one today on Instagram. I just finished season 10, and that was for sure your dad. Oh my God, what a powerful experience! I cried. I couldn't believe it. I get that a lot. I could tell you more stories, but we got to move on.
No, that was great. Honestly, honestly, awesome. from the season, and like, how when you watch a show like this, a reality show that's not scripted and whatever, everybody kind of has their favorites, and like very early on, you were my guy. You were the dude I was rooting for. You just had a certain emotional balance. What the guy who won season 1, was his name Alan as well?
Yeah, his name was Alan as well. Spelt the same too. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was kind of a fella that I thought same vibe. Like he was. Oh yeah. Good at what he was doing, but he didn't take himself so seriously that everything was all dramatic and what, you know what I mean? Just a good balance with nature and with himself. And that's how I got the vibe from you. And I just, that owl moment just stood out like crazy. Like how you watch enough reality show and whatever. Do you remember that one thing that happened? You're like, not really, but the owl thing, I just see it so vividly still, man. That was a beautiful moment. I think it's really neat that you were able to capture it. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. So let me ask you some behind the scenes stuff if we're allowed to.
Let's go.
So when we talked to, do you remember this, Nate? When we talked to Rico a few weeks ago, we said, because he has a camera crew with him. We said, has that camera crew ever screwed up your hunts? And he said, absolutely. He said, trying to get them to move at the right moment or not step on a stick or not move downwind or whatever has messed up a bunch of hunts for him. Was it hard doing all this crap? Like, because what people don't realize is if you're filming yourself and there's like a shot of you walking by the camera, you're going out, putting the camera out, hitting record, walking back by it, then circling back to pick it up, to stop hitting. Like, how hard was the self-filming part of it, man?
It wasn't that bad because I didn't do a lot of that. I did a little bit of that, like where you put the camera down, you walk by pretending you're hunting. Well, you are hunting and you've got to walk back. It didn't make sense to me because anybody watching the show that believes that you're by yourself would know that it's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Like you're doing the fake walk by.
Yeah.
So and I usually just either had on my, I don't know if I even did any walk-bys. I'm trying to think if there's very many walk-by scenes. I mean, I probably did it a few times. Like I did it when there was snow, and I'd get out early. I'd set up my camera, go back in my teepee, so they'd show me kind of coming out of my shelter.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of cool to see that coming out of the shelter.
Sure.
But everybody knows that you set that camera up, like, but it doesn't really matter, right? Because you want to see that cool shot. And I basically just took my tripod. I'd fill up my bag. The part that I didn't like, every morning you had to mic up, and once it got cold, it was a pain in the butt because the batteries didn't last. You're constantly changing batteries.
Yep.
And your mic is pretty big, so you got to change the batteries every day, and they usually last a full day, but just barely. So you put in the batteries, you got to thread it down your shirt, and it was always freezing cold as you're threading the wire through. You clip it on, and you get dressed. And then you got to clip, and your hands are so cold, you're trying to clip the mic on. So I remember not really liking that, but once I got set up, I just put the tripod on. Just kind of go about my business with the tripod. And if I'm doing something cool, I'd have the secondary little, the GoPro set up too. Like I'm supposed usually, I mean, I don't know. Like I had my system, like my teepee wasn't where I spent my time. I just went there to sleep. That's it. It was this nice little dugout cove surrounded by trees off the beach, and I got no wind. Like it could be nice. A blizzard down the beach, and my tarp just going, just barely rippling. It was the wind went right over top of it. It was awesome.
That's great.
It was a game changer actually. And then I had a day use area where I'd walk down, where I had my smoker built and a fire pit, another cooking thing, places to sit, and I'd spend my time there. And I just had my camera set up while I was working. And then my fishing rock was actually just 50 yards from my day use area. I'd walk down and I just take my camera. So basically I spent as soon as the moose rut was over, because I did hunt moose quite a bit, but they never showed it because on the show they want your story to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if your story only has a beginning, it's not going to make the cut, right? Because there's so many hours of footage. They want you to film 8 hours a day.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of moose hunting, moose calling, a couple of the walk-bys with my bow, and had a really good hunting spot. But moose never came in. I never saw a moose.
You never saw
a bear.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I never heard one. They weren't in my area. All the sign was old. The scat was all dried up. The bears had been there, but the berries were gone in my area. I had almost no berries. So there's no bears there, and there's hardly any grouse there. I mean, I think I killed 5 grouse with my bow, two squirrels, but I caught over 100 pounds of fish.
Yes,
so once I realized there was no game, and it took a lot of energy to walk to my hunting spots. Like the trees were like fence posts right beside each other. Like it was hard to move around there, and it took a lot of energy. So I realized, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah, wasting your calories.
I'm still gonna to always have my bow with me in case. And I was hoping for a chance encounter with a moose, or a chance encounter with a bear. Like, the moose is swimming across the lake. I'm gonna try to cut it off and ambush it, or there's a bear. There's a fresh track. So I always was hoping for an opportunity like that, just a chance opportunity, but it never happened. So as soon as I realized that, once the rut was kind of over, the moose rut, because we were there at prime time for moose hunting too. I focused all my efforts on fishing, and if it was not windy, I was fishing. If it wasn't dark, I was fishing. I fished for hours and hours a day because I knew that every fish I caught was 2 days more deeper into the game, right? Because I ate half a fish a day. Then I'd boil the head and turn it into like a mush, and I'd drink that mushy broth full of oils and fats. It was delicious. Actually, started really to like it at the end. I wasn't eating enough, of course, but half a fish a day was kept me going. I lost 80 pounds, 78 pounds.
Crap, you lost 80 pounds?
78, yeah.
You don't look like you could lose 80 pounds.
So
I mean,
crazy.
I'm not trying to compliment you. I'm just saying you don't look like a dude who could lose 80 pounds and not be like dead.
I gained some weight going in, like 35 pounds or so.
Okay.
So I went in at 259 and I came out at 181.
Oh,
yeah.
That's crazy.
In 60 days.
Yeah.
66.
Yeah, that ain't right. Holy mastacholi. Yeah. Jeepers Christ.
So I lost 1 point something pounds a day, whatever it was, 1.2 or 1.3 pounds a day, which is pretty standard for the show. I lost 29% of my body weight
Wow.
And they said that after you lose 30, you start feeling pretty shitty.
Yeah. That one fella, speaking of a moose hunt, that one guy, he was tromping all over, straight up passed out, like dropped like a stone, dropped he had his GoPro on his head or his chest or whatever, and just like fell into the weeds. And then they showed a timer from like going because he was down for so long.
Yeah. I think he tapped out shortly after that. Yeah.
Well, I should hope so. Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to when you start passing out in the woods. That's not a good. That's not a good look.
Yeah, and so once I realized that I wasn't going to probably be able to tromps around and get big game, I didn't move around too much. I moved from my fishing spots. I had like 3 fishing spots, my day use area, and my teepee. So the filming wasn't too bad. I always had, they give you a backpack where you have your tripod, your GoPro, and your main camera.
Yeah.
And just set it up. Sometimes I had 3 cameras when I was fishing because I loved fishing. I enjoyed it, so as long as it wasn't windy.
Yeah.
If you watch the finale, my wife, when she was in the teepee with me, she goes, "What's your favorite moment, your favorite memory, blah, blah, blah." And I thought about it for a minute and I actually said, fishing, calm nights, fishing at sunset. Like, oh, it was awesome, man.
Heck
The sun would set right in front of me. And there was a time for about half an hour when the fishing was better, and I caught a majority of my fish at that time. Just hand casting on the rock when it was dead calm. I caught fish at all times of the day, but that was definitely the money time. Just before, just as the sun was going down, or right after the sun went down.
That's awesome.
So I spent most of my time fishing because I knew that was my ticket, and I knew that. If you have the mental, you can be the toughest guy mentally in the world, but if you don't have food, you're not going to make it. So I knew I had to eat, and every fish I caught, it's like, 2 more days, 2 more days, 2 more days. Then I had too much. I started smoking fish that one night when I caught 4 fish. One of them was probably a 6-pounder, 4-pounder, a couple of 3-pounders. And I already had a half a fish from the day before, so I'm like, oh my god, I got to start smoking these because it was still fairly warm.
Preserve them.
So I built a smoker and I smoked fish. And at one point in the game, I had so much smoked fish that I think I was good till the 50s. So at one point, I was almost 3 weeks ahead, almost.
Jeez.
At one point. But then on my last food was day 49. They didn't show it, but I was.
Oh really?
I was sitting in front of my fire, and on day 40, I remember it clearly, and I'll say here, like a grouse, flew right past through my camera. Oh my god, that's a grouse! I grabbed my bow and I turned my camera and I did a little stalk, took a mulligan, then I got him on my second shot, and then that night I got 2 lake trout, 2 like 3 or 4 pound lake trout. So I had a grouse and 2 lake trout, and that was my last food, day 49.
Wow.
But I had enough smoked and saved fish. So I mean, that was 1, 2. That's 5. That evening was 5 days into the game. More a grouse is a day,
sure,
maybe even 2 if you make soup, and then those fish are another 4 days. And I had some fish stored. So to me, fish was like, and I said it on the show too. It's like it could come down because I wasn't catching a lot of fish. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like,
it looked like you were. It seemed like you were.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess 100 pounds of fish is a lot, but for the amount of time I was fishing,
sure.
Like, I averaged if the amount of fish I caught is about 1 fish every 3 days is what I averaged when I was out there. But taking into account, I didn't fish from day 49 to day 66. So I averaged 1 fish.
Oh, you didn't actually fish anymore from that? You were just trying to not move and keep your calories, or was it frozen?
The lake froze.
Oh, it did completely. Yeah. Okay. I was trying to remember how it went down. Yeah. Jeepers creepers.
And it was just a windy blizzard for days on end. So the fishing was over on day 49 or 50. There was that big storm, and then it froze, got slushy. And then I think we could ice fish at around day 60-ish, I think.
Sure.
Wyatt and I were ice fishing, but we were only allowed to go on the ice in a certain area that was thick enough. Okay. My fishing spot, it was frozen, but it wasn't thick enough. So I could only go where it was thick enough, and it was shallow water. I fished anyways. I thought there might be a big dumb pike in there, a couple of pickerel.
Yeah.
So I still fished, but I never had any luck. And it was so cold, you couldn't last very long out there fishing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about No, sorry, go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, just prior to like starting the season 10, did you have any like other experience self-filming? Like, had you tried to self-film hunts or anything like that prior to that?
Yeah, a little bit. Did I? Yeah, I mean, I had a GoPro, and I remember a library unit I did years ago. We filmed with the kids and we edited video on the computers. So a little bit, but they also give us a lesson during training camp. Like everyone goes into camp like 10 days before launch day to have camera training, bear spray training, bear banger training, all our safety equipment training, stuff like that. So they did kind of tell us what they wanted to do. They love more than one they always wanted us to set up 2 cameras, like so they could go back and forth to angles. You know what I mean? So when I was fishing, sometimes I had a GoPro on my head, I had a GoPro on the ground, and the big camera on the tripod behind me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a pain, but it wasn't that bad.
Alan, let me ask you this: did you have a battery charger of some sort, or did you have like 3,000 GoPro batteries? I've always wondered this.
The answer is yes to both those questions. So we did have this big, and it's not a secret. Like they show it in some of the shots. There's like I can't remember what it's called. It's essentially a car battery with metal around it with little plugs.
Oh,
so we could charge our headlamp and charge our batteries in an emergency. Like sometimes the crew can't come out, and during medical checks, they do our medical check. We give them all our dead batteries. They give us a big bag of live batteries. They give us empty SD cards. I give them the full SD cards. You know what I mean?
And how many SD cards is that? Like, what are you giving them? Like 30, 40? Way more?
I don't know, 20, something like that. They take a lot. Maybe more. I honestly can't remember. We have cases of them. They're in these cool little cases. I can't remember how many are in there. But also another time, when my battery was dead or when I needed something, we have a drop bag because they want to minimize the contact with the contestants, right? So there's this big bag and there's a spot where the boat comes up. I'd put it in the bag. I'd put it there. I'd go do my thing. I'd hear a boat and the bag was gone and my new thing sitting on the beach. Yeah. So that happens sometimes as well too.
That's kind of cool.
And during med checks and or media exchanges, like when we do a media exchange, like my first med check I think it was on day 23. Like I didn't know, like 23 days. I only had 2 med checks the whole time I was out there.
Really?
So people say, oh yeah, they have med check every 3 days. No, I'm not kidding. It was over 3 weeks. My first one, then my other one was in the 40s. And the last one was fake because my wife was sitting on the beach.
And the last one was fake. Yeah.
I mean, the audience knew it was fake.
Right.
Because they showed Lisa coming out of the helicopter, but I thought it was a real med check. I had no idea, man.
You really didn't.
No, I really had no idea.
Okay. Yeah. Which, I mean, you've seen the show before and you knew you were deep into the days. Did it go through your head? Like, maybe this is it? Or were you like, I just have to treat it like a med check?
Actually, the funny thing is that I had thought that maybe I was defeated at that point, man. Like in the late 50s, like maybe 10 days before that, 8 days before that, because the weather turned really bad on day 50 and it never changed. It was like minus 20 to minus 25 Celsius, which is like minus 5, 6, 7 Fahrenheit, I think. I don't know, something like that. But man, it's so cold. And we've lost a lot of weight, right? So it's harder for us to stay warm.
Totally, yeah.
And it was miserable. I couldn't fish anymore because the lake was frozen, but it wasn't thick enough for me to ice fish. Hey, there's a thumbs up on the screen. Who's doing that?
What was that? I didn't do that. Did you see that?
I did. You didn't do that?
I didn't click anything. What the heck just happened?
How did that happen? I put up my hand, all of a sudden this thumb comes up.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Are you guys messing with me?
No, that was so weird. Sorry, I didn't touch anything.
You guys are messing with me right now.
No, that was weird. No, keep going. So anyway, so you're cold, you're miserable, you're losing weight. I lost my
train of thought.
Yeah, no kidding. That was weird as crap. I was hoping you guys didn't see that.
What was my train of thought?
You were talking about the last med check and how you'd lost so much weight, and at 50 it got so cold, and you're just shivering with no meat on your bones, and
yeah. Oh, right. I remember what I was talking about now. And near there was a media exchange and a little interview in the late 50s, like 56, 58. And I was sure that was it because I caught a vibe from the crew. I caught a vibe that, okay, something weird. This could be it. This could be it.
Oh,
And,
no.
and one of the field producers, though we did our interview, I gave them all my cards. They took the other cards. The other guys went to the boat. And then one of the field producers takes me behind my teepee. He goes, I need to ask a couple questions. I'm like, oh, this is it. This is the interview. And he just had to ask me a couple psych questions to make sure I was not going crazy. He just did a quick evaluation of my mental state.
And then he dipped.
And then
he left.
And then they dipped. And I was so
crushed. Oh my gosh.
And that's when the mental state went.
Yeah, that's when you were no longer good mentally.
Like,
sheesh.
I worked myself up. It was Dave. I don't know. It was must have been in the late 50s. It was or 56. It wasn't 10, and I had to do 10 more days after that. And then from that moment on, I'm like, and I say to the show, God, I feel like this is just never going to end. But I just said, don't keep grinding, keep grinding. I made myself a promise that I was never going to tap out if I had food. Yeah, and I had food till about day 68, day 70. I could have maybe stretched it to 70. So I kind of had a plan, and I knew I'd lost a lot of weight. Like I could see lines in my face.
Yeah, you could see it in your face.
I was so ripped. I was like, and when I was laying on my bed at night, like the bones were like, I didn't have it. Seriously, it's like I had such a hard bed. Yeah. It was uncomfortable. I could feel that I didn't have any more meat. It was like bone on wood. I'm like, God. And I was spending a lot of time in the teepee, right? A lot of time to think. Yeah. I was still good. I never almost tapped out or anything, but I was getting low. I was like, okay, I'm in a dark teepee. I went out to cut wood. That was my day. I couldn't fish yet. All the game had gone. So I'd cut wood, split wood. I always made sure I had 3 days worth of wood in my teepee just in case something went wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it was the last days were tough. And if you ask me what the hardest thing was out there, it was the cold by far.
Yeah.
It was so cold. The nights were tough from day 50 to 66. Every night was an absolute struggle to stay warm.
Did you sleep, or were you able to sleep when you're that cold?
I didn't sleep much. I wouldn't
think so.
And my schedule got all backwards. I was starting to sleep in the morning till the afternoon when it warmed up a little bit.
Yeah, and
it was tough. But the only thing that got me through was hot rocks. I heated up 3 big bowling ball sized rocks before I went to bed, and I put one at my feet, one at my groin, and one on my chest, and I'd sit with my sleeping bag, and that would last for about 3 hours. And then I'd wake up shivering in the middle of the night, and then I'd have to get up, light another fire. And it's not easy to light a fire when you don't have matches or newspaper, because everything's hard, right? Yeah. And it's minus 20 or minus 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'd get everything ready. I'd get my birch bark, my little shavings, my whole stage of a fire, and I'd wrap it up in one of my gaiters so it was just ready when I got up. And man, when you get out of your sleeping bag and it's that cold, it's getting dressed is tough, and you light a fire, and it takes about an hour for the teepee to heat up. Then I'd heat up all my rocks. Then I'd go back to bed, at 3 a.m. or whatever, and that would bring me till the morning. And I did that every day for 16 days or 15 days.
Crap.
And that's the only thing that got me through the night. But yeah, it was that was instead of a fire, because I didn't have like Wyatt's. He could have a fire going all night because he built this big rock fireplace. My style of shelter, which was just an open fire in the middle of my teepee, I couldn't have it smoldering all night because it would get smoky. Like I needed a robust, crackling hot fire.
To pull it up out.
To draft it up, right? So I let it burn out when I went to bed, and those hot rocks kept me warm instead of the fire, which actually saved me getting a lot of firewood. I'd only have a fire to heat up my water and cook my fish and make my tea, and a fire before I went to bed to heat up my rocks. That's it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really smart. How much of your TP design and all that was what you had in your head before you got there, and how much of it was shooting from the hip?
It was zero. I had a totally different TP all planned out. I built one out of pencils I stole from my classroom. borrowed from my collection. So I had it all planned out, but I changed my mind when and they talk about this on the show too. We had a Cree Indigenous celebration right before we launched. A bunch of the chiefs came to the camp, and
that's awesome.
We had a celebration, exchanged some gifts, and then afterwards we had tea and some muffins or whatever. We had a little social hanging out, and I asked him, I go, so, because I had all these ideas of shelter, but I didn't really know what I'd find at my spot, what I could use, what the ground was like.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
Is there going to be mud? Is there going to be clay?
Right.
Because you need mud or clay to make a good fireplace, right? And he goes, build it. We always at our moose camps we build teepees, and we use moss and spruce boughs for the floor. And he explained it to me. I go, I kind of like that. So I had that in my mind, and I found this spot. It was like a little clearing, and all around me were these perfect teepee pole-sized trees. And in between them all were just mats of all this moss. I said, perfect. Yes.
That's it.
So yeah, I didn't have to go far.
That's awesome.
It worked out well. I would have made a few changes if I went out again. I'd make it a bit smaller because it was massive. Like the whole other side of the teepee I never used. It was just space. You know
that's funny. Yeah.
So I made it a bit too big. And I would have made a flap because once my fire went out, I would have built I would have woven some branches together and with moss or whatnot, and I would have had somehow attached it with paracord to my teepee, and I would have had this flap that I could close on my teepee, just kick out the stick to keep the heat in and to keep the cold air from coming in.
Yeah,
that's the only change I would have made. Yeah,
gosh, I love that. That's so cool.
But it was just rock and moss at my spot. I didn't even have any dirt.
Yeah,
because it's on the Canadian Shield, which is just moss rock, and the trees. I mean, the trees are so shallow, the roots, like you can actually kind of, the smaller you just push over. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's really neat. Would you walk us through your fishing setup? Obviously you didn't have a rod and reel and whatever, but I know you bushcrafted some lures. You said you were just chucking hand line. Do you get to pick the line you bring out there? How does all that work?
Yeah. So this is the actual hand line that I had on the show. I dropped it there. So you're allowed 300 meters of monofilament.
Oh, you only have mono.
Line.
Okay, no braid, no fluoro.
Maximum 20 pounds.
Okay.
So I bought, I think I got 200 yards of trilene big game because I wanted it to be abrasion resistant, and it was super expensive. And I think it was it's fluorocarbon as well.
Okay.
So it's just a little harder for the fish to see under the water.
So not to interrupt you, I literally was just respooling one of my rods on my bass boat today, and I just put big game on one of my rods today. Yeah, how weird is that?
Fluorocarbon? Nice.
Well, this is the mono stuff, like the cheaper mono, but because I'm using it for crankbaits. But anyway, that's funny. That's the small world stuff. But keep going. I love this.
And I bought, and I think 50 yards of maybe 12-pound test for leader.
Smart.
Which I didn't use too much, just in case I got when I saw how big the fish were, I thought I want to keep this 20 on. But the idea was that I wouldn't lose. I'd just lose my piece of leader, would break at the knot. But yeah, I just and I did build a rod. I just didn't finish it because
you did. Okay.
They didn't show it. But yeah, I just I handlined and this isn't the same lure because I made this on one of my YouTube videos. This is like one of the lures that I made. Very similar.
So cool.
I just carved a plug out of a piece of wood, and I put some wire on it for a bit of flash. And this here, I mean, that looks like a bass plug.
It does. Yeah, it looks like a skirt.
It's the inner strands of paracord.
So it's got to be rope, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I just tied it on here, and I'd play with the weight by wrapping. You can see I don't know if you can see it. Where's the camera?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can see.
I just wrapped snare wire here.
And, so how much you put kind of control the depth.
So for my weight of casting, so I flared it to get the right weight. And once the wood dried out a bit, it's great to have almost a neutral buoyancy, so I could twitch it in. So
it's so awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I made a mistake,
all prototype jerkbait.
Yeah,
totally. And this leader here, this wire leader, like I had one on, but it was a short one about that big. I don't know if you can see it. And I lost probably a 20-pound pike right on the shore, right in front of me. He followed it in.
Yeah.
And I remember it rested on the rock. He swam right up to it. I swear I saw his eyes go cross, and he like inhaled it. He sucked it back.
Yeah.
It's on the show.
Yeah, I remember you getting bit off by something.
Swirl.
Yeah.
And I went to set the hook, and it just that 20-pound test cut like it was on a razor blade.
Absolutely nothing.
And I saw the pike go, just turn around, swim away with my brand new lure in his mouth. So after that, because he inhaled it so deep,
like and their whole mouth is
sucked
teeth.
it right back.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't. Yeah, and that would have been literally a week's worth of extra food that I would have had if I had caught that pike. So after that, I started making my leaders a lot longer. But this one worked pretty good. But then I started making it a bit different. I just made the wood shorter, like almost like a wooden. I mean, this part stayed the same. As soon as I figured out to put lots of this skirt on, and I just kind of put a pointed head. And I found a type of tree called alder where the bark actually looks just like minnow skin. It's got little gold circles on it and stuff. And
that's awesome.
And once I figured it out and it got that neutral buoyancy where it sunk, like I wanted to sink, but I could control it. It didn't just sink like a rock and just go on the surface. And I'd let it go down pretty deep, and I twitch it maybe 3/4 of the way down from the bottom, and that's when I had my best success.
And by twitching, you mean you using your hands and like pulling on
it? Yeah. I'm like, I'd be reeling and going like this as I was reeling to make that cool. To make the skirt kind of move, right?
Absolutely. Yep. That's what we do with spinner baits and jigs and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I caught them all in the hand line. And man, you ever caught a fish on a hand line? Like a 6-pound trout, man, it's so exciting. You can feel
not in that context, that's for sure.
And it was good because I could feel like even if a fish like just bumped it, like just kind of just all like striked it and missed it, I could feel like I knew there was a fish coming, and the instinct is to stop. Oh, stop! He's going to come back. But I'd go faster,
That's
right?
Exactly right.
Then often I'd get them.
That predatory instinct. They're like, "Don't you get away from me?" Yep.
Yeah. So it was awesome. I loved fishing. I loved fishing out there, man. It was fun, but it was stressful, especially if you were getting a lot of bites and not hooking up. I went through a couple. I went through one night. It's on the show. I have a spaz attack. I'm swearing. So I'll
I remember it.
out.
Yeah, I'm like, you missed like 3 or 4 fish or something.
Six. I missed 6.
Wow. Yep. I do remember that. Yeah. Yep.
And I just couldn't. And the thing is, like, we're spoiled with our bought rigs where the the hooks are on a swivel, right? Like they go all the way around. But when you're just making a loop like this, the fish, like when they're hooked and they're moving around, the hook like locks up, right? It locks up, and there's pressure. They can put pressure against the hook and they can get off. But when it's constantly swiveling and moving, they're not able to get any pressure on it, and it's harder for them to get off. But without a swivel, you lose a lot more fish. I learned that. I never knew that, but you really do.
Yeah, that makes sense,
I tried making a swivel, like but it never worked like like it's supposed to. But snare wire is one of my most important. Even though I didn't snare with it, it was instrumental in making all my lures. Like I really needed it.
Gosh, I love this. It's the coolest. Awesome. We're getting close to the hour mark. We want to let you go so you can get some sleep for fishing tomorrow. I have one more.
It went by so fast. Like it's.
I think so too, but I don't want to
keep going if you need to.
I want to. I absolutely want to, but I don't want to finish longer than we promised.
Good.
All right,
I'm good.
Nate, I don't know what you got. I have one specific question I've been wanting to ask you, and I don't even know how to word it necessarily. But how long did it take, or did it not even happen? But I over romanticize nature. Like I said, I'm not a super emotional guy, but when I go fishing, when I go hunting, when I just go walk in the woods, and I live in northern Wisconsin, so I have a lot of woods around me. I just look around. I'm always in awe. The smells, the feels, the sounds, or whatever. Did that go away in a context like this, where it's like at first I was like, "Oh, this is amazing," and then it's like day 50, and you're sitting in this teepee, freezing your nuts off, trying to like not burn calories. Did the love for that area or like that excitement, did that ever go away, or what did that feel like?
I think it got stronger.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
I think it did, because when you're that isolated and you're that kind of connected to to nature and trying to procure food all the time. I mean, I swear I felt like I wear glasses, right? Like just reading glasses. People question me on this, but this is what I think happened anyway. So from drinking the cleanest water on earth you can imagine, from eating nothing but the purest fish, grouse, squirrels, and wild berries, I think my eyes got a little bit better. I'm not kidding. Like
I totally believe it. Yeah,
I didn't
totally
hardly ever wear my glasses. I like when I'm tying hooks, I have like glasses in my chest waders in my bag. I got to put on my glasses and thread the whole out there. I didn't use my glasses for tying any knots, any hooks. And when my wife saw me on the beach, cool. you know, she said to me, she goes, "Oh my God, your skin looks amazing, and your eyes, like my eyes were white." Like just, and
right.
I have my knees hurt sometimes and my lower back and my, shoulders, like, I'm getting older. I'm how old am I? 53. So, I got aches and pains. They went away. And and a lot of people told me that's inflammation. So my inflammation went away from eating so clean and so pure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was slowly starving to death. I was, but I felt good. I felt clear. But like if I was sitting like this, like on day 66, I felt the same now as I did on day 66. But if I got up and took 10 steps up that bank, I'd have a head rush. I'd have a head rush. I'd feel dizzy. You know what I mean? But just sitting down, I felt pretty good. Like I wasn't sick or anything, and I got lucky. I didn't hurt myself. I think I cut myself once. I was careful though. I always put my gloves on when I use my saw, and I always put my gloves on when I use my axe, or I baton my axe instead of chopping with it. So I just didn't want to get taken out of the game by doing something silly. But
that's really smart.
No, but back to your original question. No, I was like, when you're out there and you're like at kind of, you've got to kind of work with nature and be at one with nature. It was.
I love that
amazing.
answer. I love that
amazing.
Answer.
Like just like the sunset, the fishing. I saw otters swim by me. All the cranes and geese flying overhead for 2 weeks. Just the sky was like ants full of migrating waterfowl. Wow. It was incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So no, not at all. I actually, like I said, probably stronger. Maybe on day 66 or day 64 when you're freezing, you might forget about it for a day or two, but it doesn't go away.
Sure. Yeah. Dang it, dude. That's such an awesome answer.
It's pretty wild.
I love that. So it wasn't like when you your wife came and you found out you won, you weren't like, let's go to Burger King and hang out in the city. Like it wasn't like this, like.
No, you're not allowed to leave. They keep you in a refeeding program.
Oh, really?
For up to 2 weeks.
Holy moly. That's actually really smart. I like that.
Because when you're in starvation, when your body's in starvation mode, if they just say, okay, see Al, good job, man.
You're going to get messed up.
If I went to Burger King, I'd be in the hospital. Your life would be in danger. You can get, your body's not used to, can't digest carbohydrates. So it's got to be, you're in a state of ketosis.
Ketosis. Yep.
So my first meal, I still remember it when I got back. It was like a couple tablespoons of rice and like a thin slice of roast beef with some gravy on it. And I had a tiny bit of porridge the next day, but every day they'd bring you a little bit more, until you're,
that's neat.
I think it was 8 or 9 days for me.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I actually had to leave early because White and I had to leave early because there's a huge storm coming in. So we actually got to leave a couple of days early and we flew to Saskatoon.
Okay.
But no, there's doctors.
That's cool that they do that.
Checking up on you 3 times a day. There's a nutritionist evaluating you. They're checking your blood pressure. They do. Yeah, it's like you get a checkup 3 times every day when you're there.
That's really cool. Yeah, Nate, you got anything else for Alan before we let him off the rip?
Nah, just maybe just one thing.
Sure.
This was an awesome interview. Tons of great stuff about the season. But you mentioned your wife and son a little bit. Can you tell us about your family before you get out of here?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we kind of got distracted at the beginning. I was going to ask that, or you asked me about that. And I told about my teaching job, and I taught outdoor education at the high school and English at the high school. And I have 2 kids. I have a 19-year-old daughter who's at university in Vancouver.
Did it again.
There's that thumb again.
And it's
you
funny,
put your thumb up and it does it. I do not understand what's going on.
Isn't that weird?
If anybody's listening to this podcast and not watching it, we're using a service called StreamYard, and every time Alan puts his thumb up, a thumb pops up on the screen. Like it's some weird social thing. I don't know how to turn that off. I'm so sorry, man. So you have a 19-year-old named Mackenzie. Keep going.
Yeah. And then I have a son named Davis, who's 23. He just graduated from engineering, and he just got his first engineering job.
Oh, congrats. So, that's awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
And my wife's a principal still.
Oh, cool.
And I'm still substitute teaching and doing public speaking gigs.
I love that.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
We never talked about hunting at all. You guys are just fishermen. You don't bow hunt.
No. We both bow hunt. We bow hunt. My wife bow hunts. That
could be a whole other podcast.
That could be too, man. Yeah. We should link you up with. We should link you up with we're a part of this podcast network called the Working Class Bow Hunter Podcast Network.
Oh yeah,
and they're pretty big in the bow hunting podcast world. But I'm sure they would love to talk to you because we love bow hunting. That's for me, like I'm a diehard fisherman. I love to be on the water. That was my first passion. Nobody in my family hunted, and so it wasn't like something my dad passed down to me. I just picked it up later on in life. So in the fall, it's always this really difficult juxtaposition of like I want to be chasing muskies with big like rubber baits, like big heavy baits like this thing here, like a big bulldog and stuff. But then I also need to be in the woods bow hunting, and so I'm always torn. And I love bow hunting, man. We can talk.
It's a good problem to have, though.
It is
whether you be bow hunting or fishing for big muskies. Yeah.
It's a tough one. So let me ask you one last thing, Alan. I read a quote one time, and Alone should totally use this. They should throw, because you know how they put the quotes on the screen and stuff sometimes.
Totally.
They should use this one. Benjamin Franklin said, "I never knew a man who was good at quitting that was good at anything else." How much did you have to get into your head? Like, I mean, I know you talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you just like a normally, like naturally self-motivated person, or how many times did you have to be like, no, dude, because you said you didn't have any close to tap out moments.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you have moments where you're like, dude, this sucks. Like, how many times did you have to talk yourself through like staying?
Quite a few times. I'll tell you a story. So at the end, it was hard, but I had prepared myself kind of going in that. I called it the dark days on the show. Like I knew the dark days were going to come. So I kind of prepared myself for that. And I made myself a promise I wasn't going to tap out if I had food. So that was always easy. And I knew my family didn't want me to come home unless I wanted to come home. So there was no pull. You know what I mean? Like my wife was working. Both my kids were basically growing up, right?
Sure.
So I knew they weren't even home, right? So and my wife's super busy with work. So if I showed up home, they'd be like, "Dad, what are you doing? Why are you you came home?" I'm like,
"You tapped out?
What? Dad, why? Why did you come home, Dad?" No. So I didn't want to tap out for a mental reason. It would have had to be for something else. So and I wish my wife was here to answer this question, because she says I'm super driven and stubborn, and when I set my mind to something, that's it. And I'd set my mind to not tapping out if I still had food, and it kind of worked. And I wanted to know this sounds weird. I talked about it on the show. I wanted to know what it was like to suffer. That sounds weird, but I wanted to see what it was like. Because my dad suffered growing up. He immigrated to Canada when he was 8. And he was hungry. He told me stories about eating window putty out of this home that his family was in.
Wow.
And my grandpa fought in the war, and he was in prisoner of war camp. And all his life he had a piece of a grenade fragment in his leg. So, and he immigrated here. He bought a piece of land, and he farmed the land, and he built a life for himself. And like those guys had hard lives.
Yeah.
And, and my life has been so comfortable and, warm, and everything's plentiful. Like most of us in North America, we have more than we need. Right. So I wanted to see how far I could push.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see what it was like to suffer. Mission accomplished. I even said that quote there too.
Yeah.
So that helped me keep going too. And I knew that, and I didn't want any regrets. I didn't want to tap out and go home and say, God, why did I do that?
Yeah, that's a super regret.
Yeah, as soon as I was if I tapped out and I went home, I'd be like, it's over. I didn't want to have any regrets, and I had a plan, and I stuck to it, and I knew, and I did some meditation. There was a guy, I think his name was Tom Harris or something Harris. My brother got me onto him, and he said that suffering and pain and feelings of being uncomfortable are short term, and they'll be over before you know it. So I kept saying that to myself. This is short term. In the span of my life, this suffering for 2 weeks or 3 weeks is short term. It'll be over soon. Keep grinding. Every day that I'm here is a day that somebody could tap out. Keep grinding, keep pushing. So that's kind of, did that make sense? I feel like
that made perfect sense, because that's it. I mean, like Benjamin Franklin said, I never knew a man who was good at quitting, who was good at anything else. Once you learn to quit, it just gets easier. Muhammad Ali said, I'm gonna butcher this quote, I can't remember, but it was something to the effect of, impossible is a large word thrown around by small men who find it easier to sit in their circumstances than use their own power to change them, or something like that.
Good. That had flow, man. That was pretty good.
It's close to that, but I always thought that was such a dope sentiment. Impossible is a small or a big word thrown around by small men, because we get in these situations, we're like, oh, this is impossible, I can't go another day, it's impossible. And it's like, it's actually not. You just got to grit up and push through. And maybe it's not alone where you're starving to death literally on a Canadian lake somewhere, but everybody has their moments that are really tough. And there's something, I agree with you, there's something about suffering. I heard I don't know if he was a pastor or an author or something, but he said something one time about something to the effect of, and I'm not trying to get all religious right now, but he said one thing we can absolutely know that we have in common with Jesus is suffering. Like, he suffered, and maybe it's not the same suffering, but we suffer in certain ways. And there's something about suffering that, it makes you realize you're human. You bleed the same blood. You struggle the same struggles. I don't know. So that's when you said, does that make any sense, or is that weird? I'm like, no, I completely get what you're saying. I totally get that. I want to suffer. I totally.
I didn't want to suffer. I wanted to see what it was like. You know what I mean? And I knew that in order to be successful in the game, there's usually some level of suffering, unless you're Jordan Jonas, who had leftover moose meat and and a bunch of fish too. So, and I think he was close to the same weight of his regular weight. When
that's so ridiculous. Or do you remember that one season? And this is going to sound so dumb. That one season with that one guy, I can't remember his name, but he had like 1,000,008 smoked fish in his shelter, but he didn't eat them. Was that what it was? He didn't eat them. He looked like an absolute stick when he left, because he was thinking so much, I got a ration, that he didn't eat in the now. And so they took him out on a medical thing because he was so skinny.
Yeah, he went back for redemption on season 5. But Dave Nessa, I think his name was.
Yeah, I think that was wild.
Apparently that's like when you're starving like that, your brain. It was like a food hoarding thing. Apparently it's common, but there were days where I wanted to eat more of my fish.
I was going to ask you, was it a struggle? Because I think if I had that much, I'd be like, I can do a couple fillets tonight, boy. Smoked fish. Ooh.
I did that on my birthday. I had an extra piece of fish on my birthday.
Yeah.
I turned 52 out there. It was a good day. That was the day I caught the only fish I caught in my gill net was on my birthday. It was an 8-pounder.
Oh, nice.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that's a good birthday present.
Yeah, and it actually almost came down to one fish. It did almost come down to one fish. Like, I left with 2 big pieces of fish.
That's cool. Did your wife try some?
We brought it back, but then we kind of forgot about it in my bag. When she stayed there. And I think, we had it in the bag. It was a piece it was actually the whitefish that I caught on my birthday. It was smoked.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was in a bag that production needed back. So they took the bag back and the fish was in there. We're like,
whoops.
Oh well.
I got some stinky batteries. That's really funny.
Stinky batteries.
Yeah. That's really funny. That's awesome, man. Well, Alan, we thank you so much for being on the show, man. This was
fun. It's fun talking about it. I actually enjoyed talking about it. I don't know why I don't do more of these, because it brings me back. And it was, all in all, it was just a wild experience, and it was difficult at the end, but when I think back to it, it was a really enlightening, enriching experience.
For sure. Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for your insights, man. You are motivational and honest, and I wish you nothing but the best, especially in like your speaking endeavors. And thank you for jumping on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Nice chatting with you guys. If
you
guys ever
too,
want
man.
to do a bow hunting or a bow hunting podcast, that would be fun to talk about too.
We will hit you up for sure.
Yeah, we definitely should.
Yeah, we have a little series that we do. We've only done one or two so far with like bow hunters that we call deer stuff, because even though we're a fishing podcast, so many fishermen also bow hunt or gun hunt or whatever. So maybe in the fall we'll holler at you and have you back on for like a deer stuff. You can give us some insights there.
Right on. Thanks,
all right,
guys.
Brother. Thank you, man. You can go ahead, hang up and take off. Get some rest. Good luck fishing tomorrow.
How do I do that?
You can literally just close your laptop. You don't have to do anything.
Peace out, guys.
All right.
Have a good
See
night.
you, man.
Thanks. Yep.
What a cool dude, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. Heck yeah.
Dude, so like that show, like it's a super watched show. I thought when I first started watching it, it was sort of I hate this word, but I thought it was sort of like niche, like, oh, I watched a show called Alone, and everybody's like, oh yeah, me too. Like people watch it, and to think that dude just won $500,000 by outlasting everybody else. But to get the insights we got from 43,000 people apply, Nate.
That's absolutely wild. And then like I said, the countdown of people, the interviews, and then like to have like an actual like boot camp / training camp deal, the top 25 or whatever he was. That's super cool. Like
that would almost be like mentally so hard, that 24 person one, because of that less than half of you are going to make it, but you've already come all the way down from 43 freaking thousand down to 25 or 24 or whatever, and then 14 of you are going to get hacked. And then if you're an alternate, which I didn't know they had alternates, you're like a total jerk because you're in the background like, man, I hope that guy breaks his ankle. Man, I hope that chick gets sick. What, because you want to get in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was wondering when he was saying that if like are the two alternates, are those like, if they're not used, are they like automatics into the next season? I wonder.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like, because I mean that's a huge like string of events they have to go through just to be an alternate, and then do they have to do it all over again next season if they want to do it next season?
Close, and then
but
not close enough.
Yeah,
that was really cool though, man. And like I said, I knew just from watching the show that he really basically won because of fishing, and I never thought of this. Like maybe okay, so sometimes I say these things, and I promise you, I don't do drugs. Like I really don't do drugs.
You promise?
Fishing, tacos, my wife. These are the things I'm addicted to. The Packers, the Cubs, who are just deplorable this year. These are the things I'm addicted to. So whatever. But like, I had such a like, whoa, dude moment when he said hand lining. You feel everything, because like the whole deal with like a really good rod and reel is you put more guides going down the shaft of the rod. You have a higher graphite modulus count graphite in the rod for sensitivity, less stuff in the handle or the seat of the rod where the reel attaches, all for what? So you can feel more.
Yes.
You take away the rod and the reel and you just go to the line, you're going to feel everything.
Literally everything. Yeah,
which sounds so duh, but I never thought about that until he said that thing. Like you could feel a fish come up and like nudge it. And then he knew to like, kind of like musky fishing. Don't stop it, speed it up, make the predatory instinct kicked in. But that was a very like mind blown smoking weed, let me get some Cheetos moment. Like, whoa, dude. Yeah, of course it's more sensitive because there's no rod and reel. But like, that was so cool to think about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt. I thought it was also cool, like his realization of the the swivel deal, how he's talking about like hooks on swivels and how he didn't have that. And, because there's, a lot of companies nowadays that are trying to do that, add a swivel point between the head of whatever the bait is and the hooks for those exact reasons. So the fish loses its leverage on that bait to be able to throw it. I think 6 Cents did it with that Axis swim jig. A couple companies now are doing it with like their, swiveling Ned heads and it's
Fish 30 Acre. They have like in the belly, he has a swivel built into where the the split ring to the hook is, so it can spin around and the bait can move, but the hook will stay put.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's super cool. So,
and yet he's out here in the middle of nowhere throwing something out of alder wood with the rope, which that rope looked pretty, pretty skirt-ish, like a swim jig or a jig or a spinner bait or whatever. Like it looked pretty legit. And he's trying to stick 20-pound pike. I mean, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Honestly, I was really motivated by his answer to the question of like, did the nature ever lose its romantic touch on you, and he was like, never. It got stronger. I didn't anticipate that answer because it's really easy to go out there and be like, oh, I'm alone, this is awesome, and then 60 days in, 70 pounds less, to be like, dude, this place sucks, I want to get out of here. And he's like, I loved it.
See a tree again.
Right, that's what you'd think. And he's like, I loved it. Let's transition out, Nate. Tell us about last week. We had who did we have on last week? It was Mo Reyes, of course.
Mo Reyes,
the homie Mo Reyes, super cool cat. Like a lesson and a 101 lesson, and like if you're gonna do something, do it. Don't do it halfway. Like kill it. I love that whole vibe of his, from guns to hunting to fishing. Now he's 100% in, and he and I have texted back and forth a few times since then on some like fishing tips and whatever.
Nice.
Yeah, cool dude. But we meant to follow up with you. You had a tournament with your wife, and then I don't know, we just didn't follow up at the end of the episode, and I'm very sorry for that. You and your wife's tournament is important to me. I do care. Give us a couple minute rundown on it, Nate. How did it go fishing the derby with the missus?
So now, what was it? It was about a month ago, right around there, 4 weeks ago now.
Okay.
I'd say, but it was just it was his and hers / father son, adult youth tournament. So father son, father daughter, whatever. Wife son, whatever. But yeah.
Did anybody think that she was your daughter, or?
She's about the height of my daughter. They're getting to be pretty close.
But your wife is not tall.
No, but she no full thoughts there on her being my daughter. But yeah, so we fished that tournament. I think I want to say we were there was like 25 boats or something like that.
That's
so
cool.
It was a good turnout. It was good turnout, and we ended up blasting off middle of the pack. I want to say like 12th or 13th or something like that. And I was kind of nervous because about 15 to 20 minutes into fishing, like the clouds start rolling in, and it got real dark, and I'm like, oh boy, this could get real south. This could get real interesting real quick. And of course we got hit by some rain, but luckily it literally lasted 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at the longest. Like it came down, it got harder, then it slowed, then it stopped, and it was a nice day, a great day. Fished a couple spots that I had fished the week before in a tournament and done pretty good in, and didn't get a single bite. Like it was, it was.
Was it on the river, or where was it?
Yeah, it was on pool 14 out of Clinton.
14. Okay. Oh yeah. That restaurant right there.
Yeah, right by Clinton. That restaurant. Clinton. Yeah, but there's what's it called, the Inn, Candlelight Inn, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right. Yeah. It's right there on the shore, on the bank or whatever. But so I ended up having to run to a couple different spots to catch some fish. And it actually turned out to be a pretty good day. We caught a ton of fish. Like she caught a lot of fish. She caught the very first fish of the day. Just before the rain started, she was flipping a Texas rig and caught a drum on a Texas rig.
And drum, dude. You're a drum magnet, dude.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But it was like I said, it was fun. I caught most of mine. I caught a lot of on a crankbait. And then ended up catching the majority of them. Our keepers flipping a Texas rig worm, and she caught a few on a lipless chatterbait. We could not get them.
Chatterbait?
Lipless crankbait on a chatterbait. It was.
I was so confused about what you were saying. I'm like, what's a lipless chatterbait? Some kind of weird, cool new combo.
It was lipless crankbait, not a chatterbait.
Okay.
But
I was trying to correct you. I was
yeah,
just confused. Keep going.
Yeah, that really cool, like the new color that Frank Scalish came out with Booyah, where it's got like the oil slick looking pattern on
Those
it.
are pretty dope.
Yeah, it was like that oil slick and blue.
The oil slick, Frank Scalish.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's she caught most of her fish on that, and so we ran around and ended up with 5 keepers for I think just shy of 10 pounds, which put us in. It was kind of a tough day. A couple, I think 16 pounds won it, but after 16, it dropped off pretty quick to like. I want to say second place was like 14, and then it was like a bunch of 12s and some 10s, and then we ended up. I want to say we ended up in 8th place with like just under 10 pounds. Yeah, so we were the first ones out of the money.
That seems to be your pattern.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. First one's out of the money. Yeah, but this time we paid in best of the rest and ended up winning $115 in our first tournament together. So it was
that's dope, dude. Point. Shout out to Alexis.
Yeah, for sure. She was a trooper because it got hot and sunny. Like,
hot after a rainstorm, so it's just humid and sticky.
I think it got up to like 90 degrees.
Oof.
And after the rain rolled, got out of there wasn't much for clouds in the sky, so it was just beating sun. Like it was
that can get rough.
It was hot, and she held on strong. It was a lot of fun, and she's already talked about wanting to go again, and
oh, cool.
She seemed to really enjoy it. So it's kind of funny. At one point, like a week or two later, she's like, she asked me, she's like, I don't understand why you don't win more. You were so good in that tournament. Like every fish, like you caught, you got in the boat, like you kind of called your shots. You knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
And like, why don't you win more? It's like, well, it's a lot harder than it sounds, but
what you just described is what every dude in the tournament is doing as well. One of the things Lola says to me all the time, and it's so sweet and like sincere, and what she's like, you're really good at getting like snags out. You're really good when you get stuck at getting it back out. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah,
which is just a way of saying like you get stuck a lot.
Get stuck a lot.
That's dope, dude.
Been a pro at that. Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. It was put on by Twin Rivers Bass Club. They did an awesome job. A ton of giveaways. I think I want to say every kid that was in the tournament got a free tackle box.
Oh, come on.
I said they raffled off a ton of raffled off by just like drawing the chips. So raffled off a ton of shirts and hats and all kinds of stuff. They had food, drinks. Like they did an awesome job and really made made it a family sort of ordeal. Like
that's great.
It was cool. It was fun. A lot of fun.
Heck yeah. Well, I'm glad, man. That sounds really fun. A real quick recap of something I did recently. We already kind of referenced it. I went fishing, hanging out, camping with the family over the weekend. It was actually away from Hayward, like northwest of Hayward, a little area called Minong, Minong, and right behind our campsite was like a little bay area, and you could get back in there with the legend just barely through this little cut. And I'm back there fishing with my boy Dominic. He is 13 years old. He's really been bit by the outdoors bug. Naturally, naturally he's athletic, like sports, like football, baseball, basketball. He's just an athletic kid. He's fast, whatever. He can throw really well. And now he's starting to get into like fishing, hunting, whatever, which I obviously absolutely love. He's killed a couple deer with his rifle. We got him a couple years ago. And now he's getting into bass fishing. And so we were fishing, and kind of like Alan's day from Alone, where he missed a bunch of fish. We were out, and I was throwing topwater frogs in this real mucky area, and I couldn't really get, like, I had a couple blow ups, but nothing super consistent. So I switched over to a Zoom horny toad, like a topwater, like rubber toad with like a 3/0 wide gap VMC redline hook, and was throwing that thing. It was dragging it by pretty quick. Like letting it kind of kick up like a wobber plopper, and then letting it sink, pulling it back, letting it kick on the surface, whatever. Had a bunch of bites, and I just could not get a good hook set. Finally caught one that was probably like, 2 pounds, decent fish, whatever. Then we move into the shallower area, real long, but I'm talking shallow, like a foot at the very, very, very depth. And it's super weedy. And I throw this horny toad way back in there, like as far as I can get that thing to chuck. And I start just yanking it across the surface, and I get this giant explosion, and you can see it like with your eye that it's got to be, like a mid-20s northern pike, right? Like, like just a big long fish, white belly, whatever. And he's like, "Oh man, did you see that? Was that a bass?" I'm like, "Nah, that had to be a pike. It was so long." Get it back to the boat. There's no teeth marks in it. So I'm like, okay, so this is like a state record largemouth or something.
Right.
Like this thing was freaking gigantic. A pike, because he had it in his mouth. Like it came up in the air with him. His whole body came out like Shark Week, came up with it, and then spit it on the way down, not intentionally, but just fell out. A pike can't do that without putting teeth marks in it. There's no way. And so it had to just be some absolute megalodon largemouth that I have thought about since then about 25 times.
Right.
I just kept on bringing it up like the whole day, the whole next day. Like, man, we're at like fireworks, the family. Like, man, I wish I would have caught that largemouth. Explosions like that largemouth on the surface on that horny toad.
Right.
But whatever. I guess that's life. So real quick, let's run through it. Reminder, you have until the end of this month. It is July 7th right now. You have until the end of July to go on to Apple Podcasts. We've gotten a ton since we started this little shindig, and we are so appreciative. Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Thank you.
But anybody who leaves us a 5-star review and then just writes a written positive review about Tackling Tacos, we are literally going to enter your name, because you can put your name on there as whatever you want. You can put it as like Nate Conklin Fishing, whatever, and whatever it's written as on the Apple Podcast is what we'll put in the hat. We'll write it on a piece of paper, put it in a hat, all the ones from the beginning of this deal until the end of July. We will then pull a name out of the hat at random, and whoever's name is on there will get one of everything we have on our website, tacklingtacos.com, on the shop. So the stickers, a hat, a shirt, a sticker sheet, all of it. You'll get one. We'll get a hold of you and find out what size shirt you need, whatever. So please jump in on that. That would mean the world to us. Our sponsors, like always, we are brought to you. Our presenting sponsor is Grizzly Coolers. If you go to grizzlycoolers.com, WCB Whiskey Charlie Bravo gets you 10% off, which is pretty substantial in the cooler game. And they make some killer stuff, and it's all made in USA. Made in Decorah, Iowa. Grizzly Coolers are dope. They've been around a long time. They make some really, really great stuff. We use the crap out of it when we were camping. Giltech and Hook and Arrow Supply. Giltech, Brian from Giltech is getting ready to completely revamp his website, redo his lineup. He's sending Nate and myself and Lola some packages of Giltech goodies today. Tomorrow, Monday, which I can't wait, because it makes the best freaking stuff out there. The swim jigs, I'm telling you, we could talk about all this stuff, but his swim jigs to me are what really separates him, and they are flawless. Sure. They are flawless. And then our newest sponsor, which is Loophole Optics. We are so honored to be a part of that team. The Loophole Performance Eyewear is the best fishing sunglasses I've ever worn. Am I wrong, Nate?
No, not at all. They are head and shoulders above so many of brands that I've put on my face.
Same.
They're impressive. I've actually, like I said, I let the wife wear a pair of them. I was a little skeptical at first, but let her wear a pair of them for the tournament, and she was even she was impressed. Like, being able to notice the difference in the quality of glass, the quality of glasses on the water. So they are impressive.
Everything from polarization, which they do between the layers of the sunglasses, so it can't ever be worn off or scratched off or blown off, whatever. I don't know. The weight of them, honestly, like that perfect middle ground where they feel substantial, but they're not heavy. The nose bridge part of it is comfy. The colors are dope. The fit is dope. They have a million different styles. And then a small thing, but it's kind of a big thing. You can see it over my shoulder here if you're watching on YouTube. The packaging, they come in the coolest box and the coolest case with a cool little wipe down rag. And it says right on there, made in USA. Loophole has done scopes forever out on the West Coast, up in the Northwest Coast. And so if they make great scopes, they're going to make great glasses. So hop on there. Check us out on socials. Everything is at Tackling Tacos, including YouTube. Nate, you got anything else? Let's get out of here.
I don't, man. This was a good one. Thank you, Alan.
Alan,
of course.
You're a stud.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks everybody for listening. We had fun. I appreciate every bit of it. So
absolutely, same thing. Yep. Go ahead and hit us with it, Nate. Let's get out.
Positivity is worth the effort. Peace.
Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Later.